first, thank you for taking your time today to be with us. Of course, my name is Nick Kastner. I oversee brand and digital strategy at Forum Communications. And just a little bit about Forum. We um, have a proven track record of doing great work for our clients. We have a great deal of marketing experience. I believe we have over 200 years of marketing experience on our staff. And we have a number of wonderful staff members who specialize in digital, PR, traditional, you name it. We also have a lot of experience here in our local and regional community. Most of our clients are here in the Southeast, and also some specific industry expertise as well. We are, of course, if you work with us, you know we're very collaborative and we really work to be transparent in our process and how we work. And we work to be comprehensive. So we are a full service marketing agency offering full service marketing efforts. So we cover the gamut of all marketing platforms and strategies. So our experience, we have worked with over 400 unique clients in 12 states and 40 industries. And we have a wonderful team that does all of the things that you see on screen. From strategic marketing, many of you who are active clients know that we start with a marketing plan and work through the marketing plan. But we do branding, creative communications, graphic design, PR, digital marketing, really any service that would be required of a marketing department, we offer it. With that, the team that worked on this particular research that we've done, you see here. So Morgan George, who oversees SEO for our team, Josh and I work closely together on pulling all of this data together. Carly is our social media and content manager, and our web team, Andrea and Brooke, who are wonderful and do a wonderful job for our team. So our team, of course, we've talked a little bit about digital, but we are certified in all things Google, as well as a handful of other things. So again, we have a lot of expertise in-house that cover the gamut of all things digital. So really what we started with was we wanted to do research as a team to figure out what was going on. Many of you have seen what's been happening with AI and search and all of these things, and we really just needed to understand how it was impacting our customers. So that's where Leaving Vanity Behind, our white paper, was created. And we did a bunch of research. We're going to walk through that, but kind of to get started, let's talk about what's happened. So in May of 2024, Google Gemini and AI Overviews released in the United States as a beta test. And so some of you may have been involved in that beta test, some of you may not have. But what you see now in search is related to that very test. In August 2024, ChatGPT reached 200 million weekly active users. And those users do all sorts of things. It's not just search related or consumer related. It could be asking them to write content or asking ChatGPT or Grok or whatever platform to create a graphic. It can do all of those things. December 2024, of course, Grok is released, which is another AI platform owned by Elon Musk. And then March of 2025, Google AI overviews appear in 35% of desktop searches. At that time, we didn't really, I guess, realize the impact that the AI overview would have in terms of search volume. But in May, it was actually released to everyone. So in March, you could choose whether or not you wanted the AI overview response. In May, it was released to everyone and active for every user. And then in June, we saw additional tests in AI overviews in Google Discover, which is another Google platform. So what we're seeing is more and more AI responses rather than traditional search results. So just a note too, that many people and many of our clients have come to us and said, okay, what do we do about ChatGPT? What do we do about Claude? What do we do about Perplexity? Just a reminder that Google was used 373 times more than ChatGPT in 2024. Google is not going anywhere. What is happening, and what if you dig around on the web and look at the leading minds when it comes to AI and search, what's happening is that users are using both. They're using ChatGPT for certain functions and Google for other functions. What's going to be interesting is how that continues to evolve over time, and that will continue to change. I would even say that if you were to pull data from the last quarter that will end tomorrow, you're going to see additional changes in the way users are behaving. So in 2024, here's what happened. Um, when Americans searched in Google, you'll see that 41.5% resulted in a click. That means a user last year would go to Google and they actually would click on something to go to another website or to click on a phone number. 37% actually did nothing. The browser session ended. They did their search and left. 21% actually went through and did another search. So if you look at what we refer to as zero search or zero click marketing, zero click behavior, what's happening is that users aren't always clicking to go to a website anymore. They're getting the information that they were seeking directly from the browser. And so once they complete the search in Google, they're done. They have no other questions to ask. They've gotten the response they needed. Some of that at that time last year was related to those testing AI overview and those getting responses from what we call PAA, or people also ask. So people also ask is basically where if you do a search and you get a response and it says, hey, um, someone asked this question also related to the topic that you're doing your search about, then it gives you an additional response. And so people were just using those responses to get their answers. Thus, it makes sense that Google would even consider AI overview as the next iteration of people also asks functionality. If you look at what happened when people did click, 70% roughly were organic search results. 28.5% were to YouTube or Maps or Images or News or another Google property, and 1% to a paid ad. Note that you see at the bottom it says use of ad blockers may impact paid click-through rate calculations, but we do know that users do click on ads, but typically they're going to click on the organic search results. So that's what happened last year. So if you do run the numbers here, for every 1,000 US Google searches, 360 clicks go to the open web. The others do not. They actually don't go anywhere. So, with that, and what happened this year, businesses started claiming that they saw declines of 15 to 50% in organic search traffic. If you scour the web across industries, some were impacted more than others, but organic search traffic just collapsed in the second quarter. Remember when I said that in May that the Google AI overview was released to all users? You no longer had to choose to be part of it. That was part of this drop. It was all driven because of the Google AI overview response. People are just getting what they need without actually having to go to the website. So if you run all the numbers, another study showed that on average, 27.2% of queries actually end without any additional user interaction. So if, again, people aren't always going to the website anymore, they're getting their response directly from the search engine or from a large language model like ChatGPT, Claude, or otherwise. So what is happening? First, platforms favor native content. So if you've been around the web for any period of time, you know that more of you are spending more time on Facebook, more time on Instagram, more time on YouTube. If you do a search, it's quick to get a response. And so these platforms realize that. And if you leave their platform, they're not getting the ad revenue or the eyes or all of the things that they want to make sure that they are being successful. So from TikTok to Facebook to Instagram to YouTube, any of those platforms really want native content. LinkedIn as well. They want you to post content on their platform natively so you don't leave. The longer you stay on their platforms, the more money that they are going to make because of ad revenue. Second, AI-driven search is reducing clicks because Google wants you to stay on platform and they've always said they wanted to give users the answers to their questions. Now they're just doing it directly. So that is reducing clicks to websites. Third, user behavior is changing. Because of all these AI responses, users are no longer clicking on websites. They don't leave the platforms as often. So it's really changing the way that you have to think about marketing and the way that you go to market with your marketing strategies. So, for instance, this is brand new as of yesterday. Yesterday, ChatGPT announced that they are partnered with Stripe and now are going to offer what they call instant purchases. So, what you see on screen is actually one of those is a screenshot from ChatGPT's new platform where you can do a search for a product and you can actually buy it right there on the spot. You don't even have to go to the website. You'll be able to buy it directly on ChatGPT. So for those that are e-commerce, this is going to change your business immensely. Again, what does it mean? We don't know yet because it just this was announced yesterday, but this is just an example of what is happening with AI and how things are changing so quickly. So, what we know, these are the things that we've seen and we know. Consumers are getting more answers directly from the search engine without ever visiting a website. They don't have to go to your homepage or a service page on your website to get the information that they seek. Second, consumers are getting more answers directly from social media without ever visiting a website. Again, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, none of these platforms, TikTok, they don't want you to leave their platforms because they make more money if you don't. So therefore, it makes a whole lot of sense that they don't want you to go to another website. They just want you to stay exactly where you are. Third, consumers are watching more video content than ever before. So one of the things that we've seen is video content is dominant across social. I think you all know that. That's not a surprise. And so how do we make sure that, as a marketer, that we're producing that sort of content to be meaningful? And then last, consumers are beginning to trust platforms like ChatGPT, Google Gemini, Perplexity, and others for answers to their query. That is both good and bad because each of these platforms do have a bias and they all work a little differently. And so the way that they present information or even receive information is a little different. So that means we have to be wise in how we, again, go to market on search to make sure that we appear correctly. So, what does this actually mean? Well, those are the questions we were asking. Okay, all of these things are changing. How do we adjust? How is user behavior changing for our clients? What is and will be the purpose of a website if no one's going to them anymore? And is there still value in search engine optimization and what does it accomplish? So, that was the kind of premise for our study. We at Forum have access to, I think, over 100 websites and their Google Analytics data. And what we did is we said, okay, we have access to a ton of data. We, of course, don't need to share these individual websites and individual information about particular clients, particular data that we have. But can we throw all of that data in a blender and see what happens and what can we understand from it? And so rather than pull out individual client data, which we do for our clients, we just threw everything in a blender and said, okay, let's look at it and see what it looks like. We threw out some of those websites for a variety of reasons. They didn't meet our standards when in the research that we were trying to gather. But altogether, we were able to pull data from 50 websites and their related Google Analytics 4 data over an 18-month period. With that, here's what we found. Overall traffic for those websites declined 2.34%. What was interesting is that B2B traffic dropped 139%. So that was telling for us. We at first didn't really know what that meant. We thought that maybe B2B traffic, the AI overview response is just destroying these websites. We weren't quite sure. And then when we also saw this next chart, we became concerned because we do a ton of SEO. So you'll see SEO clients down almost 11%. Non-SEO clients were only down 1%. So what were we doing wrong? Like all of a sudden, our SEO clients are doing worse than those that aren't SEO clients. Why? Well, it was fairly telling if you pay attention to the details. One of the things that we have always done, and I think every SEO company on the planet has done, is focus on driving traffic both to product pages, service pages, as well as information pages. We were told and have always been told by Google that they want to provide the best information possible. So to do that, that means we have to write the best information possible. So we've really focused on making sure our clients are knowledge leaders in the fields that they are in. So logically, okay, well, we are driving more traffic to those pages that are information based. So when AI overview is now giving the answer for something like what is commercial laser engraving, it's not going to use our website anymore, so our traffic will decline. So if we actually think about the way search works, there's really three major search intent models. When someone does a search, they are either looking for information, okay, so they're looking to answer a question that they have. They're looking for what is something, or how does something work, or why does this particular thing happen? The next thing they look for is transactional. They want to buy something or they want to research a product or service. So they're looking for something more specific. This would be where people are coming to your product or service pages, or maybe even your case study pages. And then the last thing is navigational. They want to go somewhere, or they're looking for a specific brand, so they're going to go to your website anyway. So the thing that really caught our attention was the fact that the latter two of these actually continued to fare fairly well. All clicks from informational search intent, so back to thinking about this way intent works, were down 13.17%. Forum SEO clients saw an 18% decline. We have some clients that rank internationally for some terms because they're all information based. And so when you lose that sort of traffic volume, those are the things that hurt the most. And so our strategy has been information based. So why would we lose more traffic than those that weren't doing that? Because our strategy. So it makes a whole lot of sense that we lost more than clients that may not be using us for SEO services. But here's the important part. We also do a whole lot of work for product and service related pages as well. So it's not just an information SEO strategy. It also was product and service based. So we want to make sure those pages rank well. Well, those pages all of a sudden took off for those clients. And so for SEO clients, they saw a 52.55% increase in product or service related page traffic over the second quarter of this year. So another thing that we thought was interesting, because of that sort of growth to those product and service pages, we also saw a 26% increase in key events. So key events in terms of Google Analytics 4 are conversions. They are phone calls. They are form completions. They are the user doing the things that we want them to do. And if you work with us, you know we pay a lot of attention to how we really grow that segment of traffic because that's where business happens. So that worked really well. Those who did not work with us from an SEO standpoint actually saw like an almost 6% drop in key events. So Forum SEO clients also saw growth in search impressions. So we're losing. So this is critical. We are losing the clicks, but we're gaining the impressions because we are ranking for things in the AI overview response. They're just not clicking. And so when Google looks at organic search impressions in Google Search Console, what happens is that it actually says, okay, well, someone saw your brand, someone saw your brand listed in AI overview, they just didn't click. So that is considered an impression. So we saw tremendous growth there. Where others saw growth as well, we saw more for our SEO clients. Again, makes sense if you think about it. If our informational traffic drops, but we're still being seen from an impression standpoint, then that should have grown, and it did. So what does this mean? Well, our data is actually in line with national agencies. If you look at what's happening with any other agency in the country, this is sort of the message. If you spend any time on the SEO side or the search side of LinkedIn, they're all complaining about the same things and all saying the same things. And so my goal was to make sure in this research that we were measuring the things they were measuring, and we were right there with everybody else. So we're not the only ones that have had these same sort of discussions, I can promise you. Forum SEO efforts also drive higher converting prospects because, as you saw, we saw tremendous growth in people visiting products and service pages. We saw growth in key events and conversions. And so that means that is moving the right direction. But it also means that organic search is down for everybody. So that's not a surprise, should not be a surprise, and it specifically hurts informational search. So if your brand strategy has been blog posts and content and owning that space, you can still own it, but you're not going to generate clicks for it. And then the other thing I'll mention too is there is a ton of buzz around these words AEO, GEO, AIO. If you're familiar with what's happening in the SEO space at all, these terms really are answer engine optimization, generative engine optimization, artificial intelligence optimization. Like someone has some sort of secret sauce to rank in ChatGPT or to show up in queries for ChatGPT when someone searches for something. Really, the best strategies, as you see, like our SEO strategies are basically in line with what other people are saying are those AEO, GEO, AIO strategies. But we also know that brand impressions are 2 times higher than non-SEO clients. You saw that in the data I just shared. So what this really just what this really means is that the AEO, GEO, AIO, if anyone comes to you and says they are a specialist in AIO, that really doesn't mean anything. No one really knows what AEO, GEO, AIO even are. Um, Search engine optimization and its rules, the idea that you need to be an expert in your space, you need to make sure that you share your experience, that you need to make sure that you are an authority, that you can be trusted. Those things are not different for these platforms. Now, yes, there are a handful of little things that you can do and places that you need to show up in, but that's not really that much different than what you do for traditional search. So for those that are claiming expertise in these new areas, they're just buzzwords. They don't really mean as much as people think they do. So let's go back to our initial questions, right? We had 3 questions. So let's answer those one at a time. So how is user behavior changing for our clients? Users are visiting websites less often, but when they do, they're more qualified. So again, the research showed that we're not generating as many informational searches, but people are still searching. And if they're searching for something related to a product or service that you have, you should start seeing additional clicks. And if they get there, your conversion rate should be higher. That is what we've seen in our own data. So I would assume that you may be seeing the same. Or if not, you need to make sure that you're paying specific attention to your product and service pages to make sure those are of high quality. Um, I would also say that you need to make sure that you think about traffic because traffic simply indicates behavior, but it does not mean that you're successful. So one of the things that we have clients ask us all the time, well, how are you going to drive more traffic to my website? How are you going to get more users to my website? The answer is we may not, because that should not be the goal. The goal should be to drive more conversions, higher qualified leads. Traffic as a metric of success may not be something that we need to use as often because it truly no longer shows how well you're doing marketing because they may not click to get to your website in the first place. Second, is there still value in search engine optimization and what does it accomplish? Yes. um, Search is still very valuable because visibility for transactional and navigational search intent terms are even more valuable than they were before, because that means that really we're all about driving the right kinds of traffic. You see, content is still critical to drive impressions and visibility across the web, not just clicks. And so you really need to make sure that you have a fully structured marketing strategy that is not just based in SEO or search, but is really based in marketing principles. The other thing I would say is that, as I mentioned earlier, SEO is AIO, GEO, AEO. It is all those random acronyms, but it is really all about making sure that you're doing the things that show that you have experience, expertise, authority, and trust in the space. Especially as we take, the news that came out about the new instant e-commerce tools in ChatGPT, that's going to mean that visibility for transactional search is going to become even more important. So making sure that if you're an e-commerce business, really thinking through how do I make sure that I'm appearing or that I'm submitting the right data to ChatGPT so that way if someone's searching for a product, I appear. Right. Last question. What is and will be the purpose of a website moving forward? Well, websites are really the only digital platform you control in its entirety. Um, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on TikTok, on every social media platform, you control the content that you publish. You don't control what the users see around it. You also don't control um, the way that users can interact with you. Those platforms do that. So the only place that you actually own that space is your website. It also means that when people do come to your website, they are more qualified and more valuable. So you really need to think through the user experience top down, whether it's video, whether it's way that they interact with you, whether it's uh, just anything that's going to allow them to engage with you in a positive way should be considered, because your websites are going to become a critical component to your conversion. They always have been, but I think traditionally we've seen them as just like a stand up. Some in particular have looked at it as just a giant brochure. It is not that. It should be an opportunity for users who are visiting there. If they're visiting more products and more service pages, is an opportunity for you to convert them to business. And you need to make sure that you're taking advantage of it, whether that's in your website design, your website structure, the way you think about pages and content. All of those things really matter. Now, the reason why we named this study Leaving Vanity Behind is because value does not equal vanity. And we've seen time and time again where we need to track things to make sure that we're moving the needle in the right way. But defining what that is sometimes can be difficult, because many times, again, we can look at the number of users that come to your website, we can look at traffic coming to your website, but at the end of the day, it really matters what they do. So if you had 100 people visit your website and 100 converted, that'd be wonderful. If you have 1,000 people that visit your website and 100 convert, that's not bad. But if you have 100,000 visiting your website and 100 convert, something's wrong. And so we really have to make sure not that we're driving traffic, that we're driving the right traffic. So what we really need to focus on are metrics to track. What is it that we really care about? And so what we've tried to do as a team is really started to focus down on, okay, traffic, we need to look at traffic just so that way we have an idea of what's happening. But what really matters, conversions. How many people are converting to business, whether that's downloading a white paper, whether that's completing a contact form, whether that's making a phone call. That's really what matters. Second is customer lifetime value. So both customer lifetime value and customer acquisition costs come down to making sure that you have your ducks in order when it comes to information. Um, do you have any idea how much it costs to get a customer? Or how much information are you sharing with your marketing team to make sure that they can calculate what that looks like? Because understanding lifetime value and acquisition costs helps you be able to plan. Lifetime value in particular can help you decide what types of customers you want. Because you can calculate customer lifetime value for all of your customers, and then you can also take your top 10% of customers and calculate lifetime value, and then look at their profiles and say, okay, I want more of those. How do we get more of that type of customer? Next, engagement. So engagement goes beyond just a website. It goes on social media, it goes video, like all of the things. How are people engaging with you? Because if you look at engagement rates on websites, that's much more telling than the number of users. You can actually see if people are actually involved with what you're producing. Are you producing content that they care about? Do your products and services pages speak to them? All of that is telling an engagement rate. Next, impressions. So brand impressions is very, very important. Now, there's sort of a scary stat that happened a couple of weeks ago with Google Search Console where they made a change and now they're not showing as many impressions. It just means you have to adjust. But again, impressions are still mission critical, making sure that you're reaching the right people as frequently as possible or as many times as required to generate the conversion to get to your customer acquisition cost. And then last is influence. This has to do with brand. And so this is a scary, scary spot for many business owners and organizational leaders because it requires for them, if they want to have personal influence because your brand calls for that, that means that you have to do things that may be outside of your comfort zone. It also means that you have to work a whole lot harder to make sure that your brand has influence. And we're going to talk about what that means here in a second. All right, so I mentioned the crazy statistic about impressions. Um, at the beginning of September, Google made an update to Search Console, which is the platform that allows us to see how people interact with search. It shows us how many times your brand shows up, your website shows up in a search result from Google. It also shows us how many times people click, and it gives us information on what those words are that you rank for, how many impressions you generate from those search results, and so on. Well, at the beginning of September, Google made an update where instead of tracking the top 100 search results for every given term, they only started tracking the top 20. At least that's what we believe we understand has happened. And you can see for many of our clients and for businesses across the board, that purple line, that is the number of impressions. The blue line is the number of clicks. For most clients, clicks either went up or did not change, but the purple line looked kind of scary. So all that means is we have a new way to track that. So what I would make sure that you do is that you're looking at month over month data starting in September, not year over year data for your Google Search Console data, because they're not going to be comparable. So again, you just have to again, you can't panic when things change because this is going to be the new way of the web. Things are going to change frequently, but this is just one of the things we have to pay attention to. All right, so what does all this stuff mean? Well, first things first, brands matter. In order for us to make sure that we are doing things right for our organizations, you have to make sure you understand who you are. You've probably heard me say a couple of times now the words experience, expertise, authority, and trust. Google calls that EEAT. It's used in the search algorithm, was initially used for certain categories of businesses. Now it really applies to all because of the way it influences not just Google, but ChatGPT, Perplexity, and all of the new LLM AI models. And here's why. What they really want is they want to show people the results with the best organizations and the best information possible. How do you do that? You have to build a brand worth following. You have to build content that is worth reading. And you have to make sure that you are leading from a not just a business perspective, but from a information perspective for your user base. So no matter who your consumers are, they need information and you need to give it to them. Be the expert in it because many of you already are. I see a number of clients here that I know in the meeting today. And for instance, I'm just going to point out AJ because he's in the room. But AJ does a bunch of our video work. And one of the things that he's an excellent video director, does amazing work. And what he's done a really good job of is leading from a social media standpoint and making sure that he's posting content consistently to show that he not only he knows what he's doing, but to share what he's done. I think that's really the key is making sure for your organization, whether you're in consulting, whether you're in e-commerce, whether, whatever it may be, you need to make sure you figure out the area and space that you can lead in and lead in it. Because that's really how you build a brand. You need to know who you are, and then you need to lead into it. That's what it's all about. And so really all of the things that you have to do now to rank really have to do with building a quality brand, whether that's PR, whether that is video content, whether that's how you manage social or your social communities. All of those things have to be done really well, and that's how you win. The other thing, so we're going to go through a couple of things. And I've mentioned this before, websites are conversion tools. Here's proof. So this is data from one of our clients. You can see they have not driven a ton of traffic from ChatGPT, but they have driven some. And this is a law firm. And one thing that you'll notice over here on the far right column, if you look, you'll see key events. They actually drove leads from ChatGPT. Someone looked up about an offering that they have and found that they actually converted. They filled out a contact form based on what they saw in that particular service page. And so making sure that we're tracking key events correctly is really critical because we don't know that information if we don't track it. Second, traffic as a global metric is dying. Here's data from another client. And you can see that total traffic for this particular client Over the time period, so I looked at January 1st through August 31st of this year compared to the prior year. Traffic is down 24%. New users down 25%. Sessions down 17%. If you saw that data and you were really focused on traffic, that was the metric that you measured success by. Somebody's getting fired. That's not good. All right. That's not at all what you want to happen. But if you pay attention to the other metrics, appointment requests are up almost 10%. Engagement rates up 23.5%. Engaged sessions are up 2%. Those are the things that actually matter. Appointment requests mean sales. So if we are driving nearly 10% growth in appointment requests year over year, that's a good thing. Engagement rate is up 23.5%. The content that people are reading is more engaging. That's a good thing. The losses that we saw were from informational search terms, terms where they were ranking for a given topic or whatever it may be, and it was information based. Now AI is giving the response. So that's really not a concern because we know what matters to the customer. So I think for you all, you need to make sure that you understand what matters. Traffic doesn't necessarily mean win or loss. What matters is how people are engaging, what conversion rate looks like. That's what really matters. Zero click marketing is real. So some people had claimed we've had conversations with clients that, this whole idea about traffic's still really important. Okay. Our search traffic from organic search is still really important. I don't disagree that some of that is important, but again, what pages are they visiting? What are you really losing? You have to pay attention to the details. And I also have to say that when we say zero click marketing, it also means that showing up in that AI overview matters. That's the new way that people will engage with brands. And so saying that we're not going to do informational content anymore because of Google's changes, that is very short-sighted. What we actually need to do is we need to show up in the AI overview response as the leading response. For instance, one of our clients is BGW Dental Group. They have 3 locations here in Northeast Georgia. One of the questions that you can do a search for is who is the best dentist in Gainesville, Georgia? If you do that in the AI overview, it does respond to that search. Guess who shows up first? There's no single best dentist, but many highly regarded options, and the first one is BGW. Why? Because of the way that we've managed their SEO efforts and the way they've won best of a local county a number of times. Because of that, you can see has received numerous best of hall awards. But that's the win. Applying for awards, doing all the PR things, making sure that you're continuing to be a knowledge leader. That's how you win, and that's how they're winning. So again, that is really how you do it. You don't necessarily, we may never drive a click from that, but the fact that Google saw the brand as that highly valuable, that matters, that holds its weight in gold. And then influence matters. So when we talk about influence, you need to make sure that you're considering how your business is leading in whatever space you're in, whether that is e-commerce or a particular industry, a particular consulting industry, a education, whatever it may be. How are you leading? And one of the most impressive, I think, things that hit us was this case study that we had. We went with a client to an international trade show and helped them manage social during the event. We had pre-scheduled some content. We had gotten live content at the event. And I think our goal was really just to generate buzz because they had been to another event earlier that year and it went really, really well. They actually sent us images. We posted those live. I mean, that went stunningly well. So we decided we were just going to physically go to the next one. Well, in that, what they did is they actually launched a new technology. And our thought would be, well, hopefully we'll rank for it in a couple of days. The most impactful thing to us was that not only did they rank for it because of the press release that was dropped, so you see the reference to the press release here. We posted an Instagram video that had no voiceover. It only had music behind it. And Google's AI overview, so Gemini, took the words that were on the screen and used that as part of the description of the product. So it not only used Instagram as a source, it used a reel and not even the voiceover or anything written. It pulled the content that was typed on the screen as the reference. So that's incredible. And you can see the results. Organic search traffic up 12% after the event, organic social traffic up 152% after the event. But that just goes to show you the power of influence. And they didn't have the biggest booth, they didn't have the biggest presence at this event, but they were certainly present and it showed. And so that sort of thing, that's really what influence and structure and planning and marketing is all about, building a brand. So all of that starts with strategy, making sure that you have your ducks in a row and that you're really working to put together a plan that is cohesive. And it's not just about search, not just about AI, or not just about generative engine or local business profiles or any of that stuff. All those things matter, but that's not all of it. That's just part of it. So with that, you've heard me talk for a while. Do any of you have any questions? Well, there's a Q&A forum over to you'll see in your navigation at the top. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. I can also open the floor for anyone if they want to ask live questions as well. So I'll wait just a few minutes to see if you have any questions. Also, too, I have Josh, Morgan, and Carly from my team here, so they also can speak up if I missed anything or if there's anything that else that needs to be mentioned that I may not have covered. Sure. So AJ asked for video, should we be pushing people to platforms like YouTube to view there or embedding it on our websites to drive traffic there? Great question. Both. So what we are recommending for our clients to do is to post natively. So video should be posted natively on every platform. So if we are producing a new video for YouTube, that content needs to also be placed on Facebook, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, whatever platforms are relevant for that particular business. And then from the YouTube video should be placed on the website as well, because that actually increases engagement. So from an SEO standpoint, if we really want to drive engagement, that's one way to do that is because Google sees that you're linking to another YouTube video and there's value in that. So that's a great question. Yeah. And we're doing more video. I mean, one of the things we're really pushing clients to do is video. We see a ton of value in it. It ranks frequently. Um, thank you. So if our website doesn't have video, should we be adding that? If it's relevant to what you're doing, for sure. If there's an opportunity for you to do that, absolutely. It's not something that is, I think it just depends on what it is you're trying to accomplish. But we recommend video for all of our clients, no matter what. We're actually working right now with a church in a small community, and we're actually helping them produce a video as well because they need to do a better job of telling their story. So that's one way to do that. One thing also too for those in specific industries, you may find value in creating content around even your service lines or particular case studies or those sort of things to make sure that you're really drive home that you are the expert in that space. So one thing that we're even talking about doing at Forum is producing a video around PR and what is PR and how do we do PR and what does that mean? So really creating service line based content so that way, we can show our expertise in it in real time. Yeah, Amy, I knew I thought you were with the church as well, so that's why I wanted to mention that. What is most effective right now? So the AJ asked the question, what is most effective right now, short form or long form video? You're probably going to say both, and I am going to say both. So when it comes to web content for your website, I would say the longer form content because you want users to stay on your website, just like these other platforms want you to stay on their platform. We want people to stay on our websites. So longer form video is better for websites. Shorter form video is better for social. And so, unless you're live, one thing that we saw, the data shows that if you're running Facebook Live or even LinkedIn Live, longer content seems to do better. But short form content is great for Reels and YouTube stories and those sort of things. Carly, do you have anything else I need to add to that? No? Okay. Zach. So Zach asked, is adding value copy on our website more important than ever? Making sure every news story has a line about rankings or outcomes, adding validity to make sure we're seen as the best. If so, does frequency matter? Do we need to add boilerplates to pages and posts on our website? No, I wouldn't add boilerplates to pages and posts to everything that you post. Um, what I would do though is make sure that content is very present and visible. For Zach, we are actually working on preparing to launch their new website, and your homepage features some of those rankings and outcomes immediately on the homepage. There's value in that for sure. But I think really the key is making sure you're just consistently mentioning these things, but you don't have to mention the same thing every time because then it is going to be a little cookie cutter. You just need to make sure it's present. And one thing too that I would say is making sure that you're thinking about, especially for organizations that really focus on expertise, making sure that you do a good job of making sure that you have bios present for your staff members, because Google does look at that as a measure of experience and expertise. Um, Amy asked, is one social platform better than another? Should we focus more on YouTube? No, I would say that there's not one social platform better than another. It just depends on your audience. Amy, I know you mentioned you're with a church, so I would say that um, for you, for a certain generation, Instagram is going to be more valuable. For another, Facebook's going to be valuable. And you may actually have some people that do use YouTube, but I would lean heavily toward probably Facebook or Instagram. Carly may agree or disagree on that. Not sure, but I think she would agree with me. Okay. Any other questions? These are great questions. And we've got a few more. Yeah, and I would say too, talking about, okay. Yeah, Carly said, definitely depends on the demographic you're trying to reach. Short form has a place on all platforms. Younger crowds are on Instagram. So, for the church trying to target youth groups, college programs, etc. on Instagram. I would agree with all those things. So, yeah, but back to your question about the social media platforms, I would never think about a social platform being better than another. It's all strategic, right? So who is your target audience, your target persona? Um, Interesting thing. So for those that don't know, I also teach. marketing management for the MBA program at the University of North Georgia. And one of the things I'm having them do this semester is use ChatGPT, Grok, or Claude to produce a buyer persona for them to basically give information about the company and have those platforms create a buyer persona for them and then tell me what the bias is because each of those platforms actually does have a bias and try to figure out how you would remove the bias from their response so that way it would be usable. So just a just a little trick that I'm testing out on them this semester. Any nuance concerns considering that we're launching a new website during this time of enormous change? No. I think there's no better time to launch than the middle of a storm, right? So, um, no, I don't think there's any strange concerns that I have about launching. The one thing I would also mention too, for those of you that are well deep or deeply versed in search, um, this idea, there's been buzz and discussion around this idea of what they call LLMS.txt. So Google uses a file called robots.txt, all search engines do, that basically tells the search engine bot what pages they can visit and what pages they can't. Okay. LLMS.txt was supposedly someone tried to start that as a new file structure so that way you could tell these new AI engines what pages to visit and which ones not to. Well, those actually just use the robots.txt file. So the LLMS.txt, thus far, Google said they would never use it, just straight up said we're not doing that. Um, so I don't think that's going to be a thing, but that could change. But as of right now, we're not recommending the LLMS.txt file for any clients. I don't think it'll be widely accepted. Okay. Is it okay to use the same content on all social platforms, or does it make better to make content that is unique for each platform? Great question. Um, I would actually say that it is best practice to use different content for each platform based on how that platform's algorithm works. Um, but also for the sake of time, I know that's difficult, especially if you're a small to medium business. That is a huge requirement. So what we do here at Forum is we use a tool called Sendable. It allows us to, we basically upload the content for the post and it will post on our behalf. What we are doing is we're trying to optimize it as best we can. So there will be some posts that are the same for both if we're posting on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and all the things. Some posts will be the same, some will be very different. And I think it's just strategic trying to make that decision on which posts we need to optimize more than others. But same for video content, there is a difference. So I think that's the from a video standpoint, if you're talking strictly video, AJ, then yeah, Instagram, we have to make sure we have the right length for reels. Same for Facebook if we're posting a reel. Of course, YouTube stories are 15 seconds, so we have to post those a little shorter. So I think we just have to be really, really strategic on that. But um, generally speaking, we try to simplify as much as we can without making things too complicated. Are there ramifications in terms of UX? Is it any more or less important in terms of balancing UX with SEO? That's a great question. So user experience is always first. So if you're working on a new website, have a new website, user experience is always number one because what Google cares about is engagement. So if you do rank for something and a user clicks on the page and they go to the website, Google actually does not look and see what they're doing on that page, but they do know whether or not the user goes back. And so if the user goes to a page and constantly bounces back to the search engine to get the result, then that's a red flag. And so Google can actually drop your rankings if they see a bunch of users bouncing from your pages. But what hopefully Google's going to find is that they stay and they visit more than one page. And that's why UX is important. So UX is always first. And I would even say that there's a balance between UX and SEO. I would say that UX is first, That should always be the primary consideration. And if you're doing UX well, you're doing SEO well. Because with UX, we care about site speed. Well, SEO cares about site speed. UX cares about engagement to make sure the user are engaging with the pages correctly. SEO cares about that because we don't want bounces. So I think if you're doing those things, they actually balance each other out. Um, what I would also say too is this old school idea that, you know, you have to have, and I mean, it's still valid to some degree, but making sure that you're using this word so many times and that word so many times and this other word so many times on a page from an SEO standpoint, our focus now is more topical. We want to make sure that whatever page we're creating covers the topic well and make sure that we're not kind of overdoing it from posting the same words over and over again. We just want to manage, we want to be the expert in the topic rather than making sure the word is used as frequently as possible. So there's a little bit of a balance there, but that's what we're doing now, and it's more user focused. Amy asked, can you tell me the other AI sites again? I'm familiar with ChatGPT. Yeah, so Claude is a popular tool. So Claude, you wouldn't necessarily ask ChatGPT, you can, but you wouldn't ask ChatGPT to write code for you. It'll do it, but you can ask Claude to write code for you and it'll do it well. So Claude is another tool that's fairly popular right now. Um, Perplexity started as a mobile app, and they actually were interested in buying Google Chrome at one point. But Perplexity is another AI platform similar to ChatGPT. Google Gemini. So if you go to Google and you go into AI mode, that you're actually using Google Gemini. So that's the other platform. And there's a ton of others out there, but those are the kind of four prominent ones right now. So ChatGPT and Google Gemini, and then Perplexity and Claude are highly used by pretty much anyone because they're all of those have free access. Yeah, that was a great question. So are there still word count? So Zach asked, are there still word count considerations? I know at one time this was important in establishing authority, but this is where I sometimes wonder if it may be harming UX. Yeah, so word count. We still do care about word count, but it is just about making sure that you're establishing expertise. If you've established expertise, then it doesn't matter as much. Um, and Zach, I can give you some specific examples. We have a few clients now too that we're experimenting with submitting the URL to these AI platforms like ChatGPT or I forgot to mention any Grok. Grok is another one, Grok. It's actually owned by Elon Musk. It definitely has a bias, but the word count consideration, back to answer that question, um, really all we want to do is make sure that we're covering the topic. And so what we're doing is we're actually submitting, we have some of our sites now in the blog post, we're adding summarize this page with ChatGPT, and you click on the link that we've created, and we've created a query where basically it auto submits the query to ChatGPT and it will summarize the article. And that way they don't have to read the whole thing. They can go to ChatGPT or Google Gemini or whatever, and actually will just summarize all of it within a paragraph. So people that don't want to read it, they don't have to. But it also, sneaky strategy, basically gives the link to ChatGPT for it to add it to its database. So it doesn't have to crawl it. It crawls it because we force it to, and then it saves that information for us as a resource. So it's clever, but we're trying that out to see how that works for a few clients. Um, and then we're also adding the other thing that we're doing, and Morgan may be able to speak to this. I don't know if she wants to jump in or not, but we're adding tables of contents for some articles because that way it's easier for Google and these AI platforms to parse. So that way they can jump into the article and find exactly what they're looking for. And it also can help trigger the people who also, or people also ask triggers that are in Google search results. That way we can give them directly answer the question. And so sometimes in the table of contents, we're even asking, like structuring it so that way a question is asked and then we answer the question. Yeah, Morgan said yes in FAQs. So we're really trying to make sure that we're adding that sort of content so we can show up more frequently, both in the AI overview, but also in people also ask. And all of these platforms they like a whole lot FAQs because they're easy to answer. So if someone searches for the question, we've already got the response. So and there's tons of tricks to all of these things. Like we were talking about, AI optimization and generative engine optimization, all those sort of things, but they all are related back to SEO. So just making sure we're doing those things well. And that is what Morgan George does every day. So Zach asks, would it be worthwhile to set up a bot to feed LLMs information about your organization? Ooh, that's sneaky. I don't know. That's an interesting idea. Um, so we're trying to do that natively. I'm not sure what would happen if I'm sure there are other people trying to figure that out right now, Zach, and that may eventually be Black Hat, but for those that don't know, that might be a thing that you could do right now for sure. So it might be successful in the moment. Um, all right, with that, thank you all for being here. Yeah, that's right. Zach said get it on the ground floor. Um, so thank you all for being here today. If you have additional questions for me, my email address is just nick@forumspeaks, speaks.com. You're welcome to reach out to me directly or reach out to anybody here at the team at Forum. If we're not already working with you, would love to. And really just thank you for your time today, and thank you for listening to all the things about our white paper. We also too, you can still download the white paper on our website if you haven't done that. I'm happy to share that with you as well. So if you want to, or I can email that to you directly. But again, just thank you for today, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon.